The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. We'll talk about yesterday's format change to the show a little bit later. I was just talking, actually, you mentioned Microsoft Paint to me earlier this morning, I think it was, because you wanted to consider making a graphical adjustment to something, doesn't even matter what, and you opened up Microsoft Paint. Right. And as it turns out, Microsoft Paint is going away. And this really was an element of my childhood. I mean, when we first got Windows, I think it was Windows 3.1 on an old computer at my house.
So that's before 95, right?
That's before Windows 95. That's exactly right. I believe that there was already this little graphics program called Microsoft Paint, and you could save files in this format that now is probably unknown to a lot of people. A BMP or a bitmap file, very different than a JPEG file or whatever other file format you're talking about. It came with the first version of Windows 1.0 back in 1985, and it's sort of been considered like a core part of Windows, and it's going away with the new version of Windows, which is a sad day for many people.
The next thing you're going to tell me is that Minesweeper and Solitaire are not the primary reasons to buy a computer anymore.
Are those still on versions of Windows?
I think so.
I haven't played them for so long. I used to not.
It's pretty useless. I don't know why they would even install it into the software, because you can go online now and get much better games than
whatever
those two.
Free game you want. Yeah, but those are classics. I mean, I remember learning Minesweeper and learning the concept of it. It's kind of a logic game in a lot of ways. Interesting little game. Anyway, so yeah. We have Microsoft Paint signaled for death, as well as Outlook Express is going away from Windows pre-installs. The Reader app and Reading List are all going to be gone from the next version of Windows. And a lot of people sad to see it go. There's actually a whole sort of like sub-community, not a subculture, I guess is what I mean, of Microsoft MS Paint artists who do really almost like on a pixel by pixel basis. They construct really good art with Microsoft Paint.
Well, it would have to be a cult following because, of course, the best graphic artists are going to be using much more advanced softwares.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just not up to speed with that stuff. You mentioned yesterday how I needed to use Photoshop or something or something along those lines. And because we have GIMP, which is far more advanced than I'm used to, and I had to do a very simple thing, I wanted to just use Paint for it.
Right. And that's
soon
actually
I won't
why
be able to anymore.
The articles about MS Paint say that if you were at work and you don't have any graphics software installed, I guess this would be before the days of GIMP, which is a free, relatively okay graphics program, you could open up whatever you needed in Microsoft Paint and do like a quick cut and paste job for whatever work-related thing you were doing. Yeah, but it's going away.
I wonder if because it's a free software and maybe they have tie-ins to software that you have to pay for, that there's this competitive streak that's being lost. You see what I'm saying?
I don't think so.
No, maybe
me.
Photoshop and GIMP are trying to pay them off in some way.
No,
and because they have to compete with Paint, it's not doing so well for them.
I don't think the people who are deciding between Photoshop and Illustrator, for example, are thinking about maybe using Microsoft Paint instead.
Oh, okay.
I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't think it's one of this world. I've never met someone who said, you know, I'm debating whether to go with like the Adobe suite or something else, but I might just go with Paint.
That thought may have just been better off staying in my head, I think.
I've talked many times about this really frustrating thing that happens at some restaurants. New restaurant opens, right? And they've got their prices and they've got their sort of initial quality and serving size when it comes to food that they have. Some places will realize, you know what, we've really got to increase our profit margin. We're not making enough money here. Let's increase the price of our menu items. However, many restaurants or cafes or whatever realize it's very noticeable if we just all of a sudden up the prices on stuff. So another approach that some restaurants will take in order to increase profit is they will do one of two things. They will either reduce serving sizes, portion sizes, in order to save money, keeping prices the same, which will increase profit margin, or they will start sourcing cheaper ingredients. They'll keep the prices the same, but they will get cheaper source ingredients for the dishes that they make. This same phenomena has been identified in over 2,500 consumer products, which is that in order to keep the price the same, the product size has decreased over the last 5 years. And this was a report from the Office for National Statistics, I believe in the UK. This is a BBC report, although the exact same thing happens in the United States. And they said that it's everything from chocolate bars to toilet paper to coffee, fruit juice, etc. Price stays the same, so you see it and you say, oh, price hasn't gone up. That's the price I'm used to paying. But you've got a smaller amount of stuff. Exact same thing that happens in restaurants.
Well, for many of these companies, I think it's kind of easy for them to justify this change to their consumers. So to pick two of the examples that you gave, candy bars and toilet paper.
Yep.
With the candy bars, they can say, well, there's a massive obesity epidemic in the United States. We want to just get portion sizes down to a smaller size.
But then charge less.
Yeah, they should, but then they don't even have to give that follow-up, right?
Yeah.
And then with toilet paper, they can say that, it's more efficient.
Well,
you're wasting less.
Efficient is kind of a weird way to say it, but Andrex, which is one of the companies that does paper towels and toilet paper and whatever, that was part of this study, which did shrink a bunch of their products. They said, yeah, our toilet paper rolls are smaller, but they're now better quality. I don't know if that means that they're more efficient, but they're better quality. They did not go into detail about how the quality of the toilet paper has increased such that it now makes sense to pay more per unit. And this is why, this is a basic thing. When you go to the supermarket, aside from whether you're trying to buy the cheapest thing, right? That's a separate question. Like, should you buy the cheapest or the middle or the more expensive? It's really important to look at the unit price versus the total price, because you might see 2 jars of applesauce and you might see, oh, one costs $5 and one costs $6. And you might say, well, the $5 one is cheaper. But the $5 one might be quite a bit smaller. And usually most supermarkets, I can't believe I'm even doing this, but really a lot of people don't know this, next to the price of the item, you will usually see the unit price, which will be like, what's the price per quart of this product? And then you might see that actually the one that costs more is cheaper. And in fact, it's often the case that when you're buying more at a time, you're actually paying less per unit value.
And if it doesn't have that unit price there, you can bring out a pen and a piece of paper and do some quick proportion math.
Well,
maybe?
I actually bring a protractor and a TI-83 graphing calculator whenever I go grocery shopping.
That's how I do my shopping too.
I need to know. No, actually, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Amazon Fresh has launched here in Boston. And Amazon Fresh is a grocery delivery service from Amazon. They've basically got a local grocery store, but it's not open to the public. It's just staff putting together people's orders. You go on Amazon, and I know all about, Amazon's bad for this reason, that reason, the Whole Foods thing, this, that, the other thing. This is life-changing convenience. I go on and I just type in the items that I need for my groceries, and then even as little as 12 hours later, they're delivered to my place.
Well, I mean, that is pretty cool, and it shows that we are living in the future.
We definitely are.
Yeah, the other thing I would mention on this, too, is, like, if a restaurant decides to make their portions smaller, the only people that are really going to notice that are the people who go there frequently.
Sure.
But if, you're just showing up because you're on vacation or you're just checking out this place for the first time, you're not going to really notice that it's any different than they used to serve in their portions. Yeah,
and that's so you're basically, it's a play that is particularly bad for regulars, right? I mean, the regulars are really the people you risk alienating. If you just go by once and you see the prices, somebody who's only going to go to a restaurant one time, or who hasn't been there before.
Yeah, they'll look at the prices.
They'll look at the prices. They won't know, well, have they decreased the quality of the source materials? I think that's a very good point.
And sometimes you'll see menus with pictures of the product itself, of the food displayed on a nice plate in a nice fancy fashion. But
of course, you don't know the size of the plate.
You don't know,
Still hard to ever frame a reference. Okay, so anyway, it's happening at restaurants. It's happening with products. I don't think anybody's super surprised. Let's talk about the Dave Rubin interview yesterday. On the broadcast show yesterday, we did something totally different. Instead of talking about the latest news of the day, we did a full, nearly hour-long interview. Yesterday, it happened to be with Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report. This was controversial for two reasons. One, it was controversial because we don't normally do a full show, a full hour interview, and people were reacting to that. Some people liked it. Some people liked the idea but thought it was a waste of an hour specifically with Dave Rubin, and then some people just said they'd rather just hear us riff about the news and have a shorter interview, or some people don't like the interviews at all. They want no interview whatsoever. However, then there were the people who appreciated the in-depth interview, but just really didn't like what Dave Rubin had to say. Like they were saying, I got a lot of emails from people saying, well, it's good you actually pushed him to have to defend more specifically some of his assertions, and he wasn't able to do that. So you did the right thing, but it was annoying because we feel he was filibustering you, or whatever the case may be. And other people just loved it. They absolutely loved it. So the full range of feedback on the interview with Dave Rubin yesterday, and then we did 3 regular news stories on the bonus show.
It's interesting. I was looking at the full show that we upload for our members.
Yep.
And the like to dislike ratio for that episode with the full hour interview of Dave Rubin was 18 likes to 3 dislikes.
Okay.
Now, normally the full show that we give to our members doesn't receive any dislikes, or maybe if it does, it's just 1.
Sure.
And it's hard to say if people are disliking those videos because they don't agree with what Dave Rubin is saying, or because they don't like the new format that we may do occasionally.
Sure, yeah. So I think the message is what? The message is actually write in and tell me what you thought about doing that. And if we did that once every 2 weeks, once a week, once a month, never, do you never want to see that again where we do a full hour interview? Do you want to see it, but only with certain guests maybe? I don't know. But we're testing it, right? We're exploring.
And I did enjoy that Dave Rubin interview, especially because he was able to go in depth not only into his own political philosophy, which he does talk a lot about on his own show, but also more like specific areas, news, things that are going on every day, like, what's going on with Trump and Russia, and even specific issues like tax policy and healthcare policy, because you don't usually see that kind of stuff from him.
No, increasingly, and he said he's not trying to do a show where he's reacting to the day's news or the previous day's news. He's doing a show more about broader conversations and ideas and other people's political philosophies, etc. So yeah, I think it was super interesting. Whether or not it becomes a regular feature of the program remains to be seen, but I liked that we tried it. And it's all about trying things. How do you know if you like something unless you try it? That's my philosophy, except with many, many things that I'm not interested in trying even once. So I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're all entitled to be a hypocrite every now and then.
Yeah, people are complex.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any person who is completely consistent in all aspects of the philosophy of their life.
Sure.
I've never met one anyway, and certainly we don't have one in the White House right now. I think I can add that. Okay, that's it for the bonus show. Please send me your feedback about the idea of the full hour interview, and we'll continue to process that feedback and eventually come up with some kind of plan for the future.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.